Esua. Sometimes the smallest question can change an entire life. Claire Bennett never imagined that $47.12 would become the number she remembered forever. The neighborhood grocery store felt unusually quiet that Wednesday evening. Fluorescent lights reflected across polished tile floors, shopping carts rolled past in gentle rhythm, and tired families hurried toward the parking lot before another chilly Chicago night settled over the city. Claire stood in the checkout line with only 3 things inside her worn canvas tote: a loaf of whole wheat bread, carton of milk, 1 container of baby formula. Nothing more. Her daughter Lily had fallen asleep inside the shopping cart seat, her tiny hands wrapped around a faded stuffed rabbit that had survived every move, every apartment, and every difficult season they had shared together. Claire smiled at her for just a moment. That smile carried more strength than anyone around her could see. The cashier scanned the final item. "That will be $47.12. Claire nodded politely. She already knew. She carefully opened the old leather wallet she had carried for years. 1 $20 bill. 1 10. 1 5. Then coins, nickels, dimes, quarters, pennies. She counted once, then counted again. Her fingertips moved more slowly the second time. The numbers refused to change. $44.38. Her heart sank quietly. No frustration crossed her face. No embarrassment escaped her lips. She simply looked at the baby formula resting beside the register. The cashier waited patiently. "There is no rush." Claire offered a grateful smile. "Thank you." She reached for the formula with gentle hands. "I will put this back. It can wait." The words sounded calm. Only she knew how much they hurt. Behind her, several customers shifted their shopping carts. One man sighed loudly. A woman glanced impatiently toward the register before checking her watch. Claire lowered her eyes. Not because she felt ashamed, because she refused to let strangers witness how frightened she truly was. Lily would need that formula before morning. Somehow, she would figure it out. She always did. As she lifted the container from the counter, a quiet voice spoke just behind her. Soft, calm, without judgment. "Is that all you have left?" Claire turned slowly. Standing a respectful distance away was a tall man wearing a tailored navy overcoat over simple. Claire held the worn wallet a little tighter. The stranger did not move another step. He gave her space. He gave her time. Most of all, he gave her a choice. The grocery store seemed to grow quieter. Even the impatient customers behind them stopped shifting their carts. The cashier looked from one face to the other, sensing that something far more important than a purchase was taking place. Claire took a slow breath. "I have always paid my own way." The man nodded. "I believe you. I can see that." His answer surprised her. There was no sympathy in his voice, only respect. He reached into his coat pocket and removed a simple black wallet. Without looking at her again, he placed his card on the payment terminal. The cashier hesitated. The man smiled politely. "Please ring everything through." Claire immediately shook her head. "I cannot let you do that." He looked at her calmly. "Then let us agree on something." She waited. "You are allowing me to help a child eat dinner. You are not asking me to rescue your life." The distinction settled quietly between them, protected the one thing Claire valued most, her dignity. She lowered her eyes for only a moment. When she looked back up, her voice was steady. "Thank you." The payment processed with a soft electronic chime. Nothing dramatic happened. No applause. No celebration. Just one ordinary sound, marking the end of an extraordinary moment. The cashier carefully placed the baby formula into a paper grocery bag. "I hope your little girl has a wonderful evening." Claire smiled warmly. "She will." As she reached for the bag, the stranger accepted the receipt. For a second, Claire assumed he had taken it by mistake. Instead, he borrowed the cashier's pen. He turned the receipt over. Slowly, deliberately, he wrote a single sentence. His handwriting was neat, confident, unhurried. Then he folded the receipt once and slipped it inside the grocery bag without saying a word. Claire noticed the movement but did not ask about it. Some gestures were not meant to be explained immediately. The man stepped back. "I should let you get home." She nodded gratefully. I never even asked your name. He smiled. Tonight. It is not important. She almost laughed. It feels like it should be. Perhaps another day. He gave one gentle glance toward the sleeping little girl. I hope tomorrow is easier. With that, he turned and walked toward the exit. His pace remained unhurried. His shoulders carried quiet confidence rather than pride. Claire watched until the automatic doors closed behind him. Only then did she realize she had never learned anything about the stranger except the kindness he carried. Outside, the cool Chicago evening wrapped around her as she carefully buckled Lily into the back seat. The little girl stirred but did not wake. Claire placed the grocery bag beside her and finally noticed the folded receipt resting near the top. Curiosity tugged gently at her heart. She unfolded the paper beneath the soft glow of the parking lot lights. There were no signatures, no phone number, no company logo, only one handwritten sentence. Every good mother deserves one easier day. Claire read it once, then again. A single tear slipped quietly down her cheek, not because someone had paid for baby formula, but because, after so many difficult years, someone had seen the strength she fought so hard to hide. That night, the apartment felt quieter than usual. The old refrigerator hummed softly in the corner. Rain tapped gently against the kitchen window. Claire Bennett placed the grocery bag on the small wooden table before carefully lifting Lily into bed. The little girl never woke. She simply smiled in her sleep, still holding the faded stuffed rabbit close to her chest. Claire pulled the blanket a little higher around her daughter. Then she whispered, "You will never remember tonight." I think that is a blessing. She returned to the kitchen carrying the folded receipt. The paper looked ordinary. The handwriting did not. She read the sentence once more. Every good mother deserves one easier day. No signature, no explanation, no expectation. She carefully slipped the receipt inside her wallet behind Lily's hospital bracelet. 2 small pieces of paper, both priceless. Outside, downtown Chicago shimmered beneath thousands of lights. Several miles away, a black sedan rolled quietly beneath the illuminated entrance of Sterling Global Headquarters. Alexander Sterling stepped from the vehicle. The security guard greeted him with quiet respect. "Good evening, Mr. Sterling." Alexander smiled politely. "Good evening." He entered the nearly empty executive building. Most of the offices were already dark. Only a handful of lights remained across the upper floors. His assistant waited outside the executive suite with several folders. "I apologize for the late delivery." Alexander accepted them. "No apology is necessary." She handed him one final folder before leaving. "Human Resources requested your review before tomorrow morning." After she disappeared down the hallway, Alexander entered his office alone. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the sleeping city. He loosened his tie, placed the grocery receipt still tucked inside his jacket pocket onto the desk. For a long moment, he simply looked at it. Then he opened the Human Resources folder. The first resume rested neatly on top. Claire Bennett. Alexander paused. He recognized the name immediately. His eyes moved slowly across the page. Administrative experience, excellent employment history, strong professional references, employment gap following the birth of her daughter. Nothing extraordinary, everything honest. He continued reading. One recommendation letter caught his attention. Claire consistently places people before herself while completing every responsibility with remarkable professionalism. Alexander quietly leaned back. The words sounded familiar. He had witnessed them only hours earlier, not inside an office, inside a grocery store. He closed the folder gently. Character rarely introduced itself through speeches. More often, it appeared during ordinary moments when no one expected to be noticed. The following morning arrived bright and cool. Claire adjusted the collar of her simple navy blazer before looking into the small apartment mirror. It was the only interview outfit she owned. She smoothed one wrinkle from the sleeve. Good enough. Lily ran into the room carrying her stuffed rabbit. "You look pretty, Mommy." Claire smiled. "I hope they think so too." "They will." "How do you know?" The little girl hugged her tightly. "Because you always tell the truth." Claire laughed softly. Children measured people differently. They measured them correctly. She picked up her worn leather wallet. Before placing it inside her purse, she glanced one final time at the folded receipt hidden beside Lily's bracelet. The words remained exactly the same, but somehow, they no longer felt like a gift from a stranger. They felt like a quiet promise that kindness had not disappeared from the world. Holding that thought close to her heart, Claire stepped outside and began driving towards Sterling Global headquarters, completely unaware that the man she hoped she would never disappoint was already waiting inside. Claire Bennett parked her aging sedan beneath the towering glass headquarters of Sterling Global. For several quiet seconds, she remained inside the driver's seat. The engine had already stopped. Her hand still rested upon the steering wheel. She looked up at the building stretching into the crisp Chicago morning. It seemed impossibly large, almost like another world. She reached into her purse. The worn leather wallet felt familiar beneath her fingertips. Without thinking, she unfolded the grocery receipt one more time. Every good mother deserves one easier day. The words had not changed. Neither had her determination. Claire smiled softly. Today, I will earn my own easier day. She carefully returned the receipt beside Lily's hospital bracelet, straightened her navy blazer, and stepped into the morning air. Inside the lobby, polished marble reflected streams of natural sunlight pouring through enormous glass walls. Employees crossed the floor with confident strides. Business conversations floated quietly through the open space. Everything looked refined. Everything felt intimidating. Claire inhaled slowly, then walked toward the reception desk. The receptionist greeted her with a welcoming smile. "Good morning. May I help you?" Claire returned the smile. "My name is Claire Bennett. I am here for a 10 o'clock interview." The receptionist checked the schedule. "Welcome, Miss Bennett. They are expecting you." She handed Claire a visitor badge. "The elevator on your left will take you to the executive recruiting floor. Someone will meet you there." Claire thanked her sincerely before stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, she caught one final glimpse of the busy lobby below. Each passing floor carried her farther away from the life she had always known. Yet strangely, she felt calmer than she expected. Several floors above, Alexander Sterling stood inside his executive office overlooking downtown Chicago. The city stretched endlessly beneath the morning sunlight. His assistant entered quietly carrying a tablet. "The first candidate has arrived." Alexander nodded. "Miss Bennett?" "Yes." He looked briefly toward the skyline before speaking. "I will observe today's interview." His assistant hesitated. "Would you like human resources informed?" Alexander gently shook his head. "No. They should conduct every interview exactly the same. No special treatment. No special attention." She smiled with understanding. "Of course." Moments later, Claire entered a comfortable waiting area outside the conference room. Framed photographs celebrating Sterling Global's community programs lined the walls. One image caught her attention: employees volunteering at a neighborhood food bank. She studied it quietly. Success, she realized, could also look like service. The conference room door opened. A human resources director stepped forward with a warm expression. "Miss Bennett." Claire stood immediately. "Good morning." The director extended her hand. "Thank you for being here. We are looking forward to speaking with you." Claire followed her into the conference room. 3 interviewers sat around a polished wooden table. Fresh notepads rested neatly before them. Sunlight filled the room with quiet warmth. No one appeared rushed. No one appeared intimidating. The human resources director smiled. "Please make yourself comfortable." Claire sat gracefully. She folded her hands lightly together, not to hide nervousness, to steady hope. Far above the conference room, behind discreet privacy glass overlooking the interview suite, Alexander quietly watched as the conversation prepared to begin. He recognized the same calm eyes, the same quiet strength, the same woman who had tried to leave behind the one thing her daughter needed rather than surrender her dignity. Today, no one inside that room knew her story, and that was exactly how he intended it to remain. The first question arrived gently. "Miss Bennett, what would you say is your greatest professional strength?" Claire did not answer immediately. She considered the question with quiet care. Finally, she smiled. I stay. The three interviewers looked at one another. Claire continued. When work becomes difficult, when people become frustrated, when problems seem larger than solutions, I stay. I listen. And I keep working. One interviewer leaned forward. That is an unusual answer. Claire nodded. So is life. A soft laugh moved around the room, not because she had tried to be clever, because she had been completely sincere. The conversation continued naturally. They discussed scheduling, organization, communication, managing priorities. Claire never exaggerated her accomplishments. Whenever she described a success, she also acknowledged the people who had helped create it. She never spoke as though she had achieved anything alone. Behind the observation glass, Alexander Sterling remained silent. His attention never drifted toward her resume, stayed on her face. Every answer sounded exactly like the woman he had met in the grocery store. Calm, honest, grounded. The human resources director asked another question. Can you describe a difficult situation you handled successfully? Claire folded her hands gently together. My daughter became very sick during my previous position. I requested temporary flexibility. My employer worked with me. When she recovered, I made certain every missed responsibility was completed. She paused briefly. I believed gratitude should be demonstrated through action. One interviewer looked down at her reference letters. Your former supervisor wrote something similar. Claire seemed genuinely surprised. He did. He wrote. Claire never searched for excuses. She searched for solutions. For just a moment, Claire lowered her eyes. He was very kind. No, the interviewer smiled warmly. He was very specific. Alexander noticed something important. She accepted encouragement with humility. She never assumed praise belonged to her. The interview slowly reached its conclusion. The human resources director closed her notebook. Miss Bennett, if you were offered this position, why would you want to join Sterling Global? Claire looked toward the large windows overlooking Chicago. The skyline shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. When she answered, her voice remained soft. I want my daughter to grow up believing that honest work still matters. I want her to watch me build something instead of merely surviving. I cannot promise that I know everything. I can promise that I will learn. I can promise that people will be treated with respect. And I can promise that every opportunity you give me will be appreciated. Silence settled naturally across the room. Not an uncomfortable silence. A thoughtful one. The human resources director stood first. Thank you for your time today. Claire rose and shook every hand. Thank you for yours. She collected her purse and quietly left the conference room. The hallway felt peaceful. She released one slow breath. Whatever happened next, she knew she had spoken honestly. As she approached the elevator, another door opened nearby. A tall man stepped into the hallway. Their eyes met instantly. Claire stopped walking. Recognition spread across her face. The grocery store. The handwritten receipt. The quiet kindness. Every memory returned in a single heartbeat. Alexander offered the same gentle smile she remembered. Neither of them spoke at first. Some moments needed silence before words. Claire stood motionless for a brief moment. The quiet stranger from the grocery store. The man who had written a single sentence that carried her through the hardest night of the month. He was standing only a few feet away. Her voice arrived almost as softly as her memory. It was you. Alexander inclined his head. Good afternoon, Miss Bennett. There was no trace of pride in his expression, only the same calm presence she remembered. Claire glanced around the executive hallway before looking back at him. I did not know. You work here. A faint smile crossed his face. I do. She laughed quietly, almost embarrassed. I suppose that explains the building. The gentle humor dissolved the surprise between them. For a moment they simply stood in comfortable silence. Claire held her purse close. I never had the chance to thank you properly. Alexander shook his head. You already did. I did. When you accepted help without surrendering your dignity. His words settled gently into the quiet hallway. Claire lowered her eyes for a moment. I almost refused. I know. I thought accepting would make me feel weaker. And did it? She considered the question carefully. No. It reminded me that kindness still exists. Alexander nodded once. Then it accomplished exactly what it was meant to accomplish. Before Claire could respond, an executive assistant approached. Mr. Sterling, the human resources review is ready. Claire blinked. Her eyes shifted from the assistant back to Alexander. Mr. Sterling. The assistant smiled politely. Our chairman. For a heartbeat, the hallway disappeared. Chairman. Sterling. The name on the building. The name on every folder. The name on the visitor badge hanging from her jacket. Everything connected at once. Claire stared at him with quiet disbelief. You are. Alexander answered before she finished. Alexander Sterling. The company belongs to my family. She inhaled slowly. You never told me. You never asked. Neither statement carried accusation, only honesty. Claire looked down briefly, searching for the right words. I would have thanked you differently. Alexander's expression softened. I hoped you would not. She looked back at him. Why? Because gratitude should never change because of a title. Another quiet pause followed. The assistant remained respectfully silent several steps away. Alexander spoke again. I also want you to know something important. Claire listened carefully. I was not part of your interview. I observed. I did not evaluate. I will not decide your future alone. She frowned slightly. You could. I could. But I will not. His voice remained steady. If you receive an opportunity here, it must belong to you, not to me. Those words carried more weight than any promise. Claire felt the tightness in her chest slowly disappear. She realized he had protected her dignity twice. Once inside a grocery store, now inside his own company. She smiled with quiet gratitude. Thank you. Alexander returned the smile. I believe you have already earned the respect of the interview panel. What happens next should be determined by your character. An elevator chimed softly nearby. Claire stepped inside before the doors closed. As the elevator descended, she touched the folded receipt resting safely inside her wallet. It suddenly meant even more than before. Not because it had come from a billionaire, because it had come from a man who understood that true generosity never asks to be remembered. Several floors above, Alexander entered the executive boardroom. The Human Resources Committee had already gathered around the polished conference table. Evaluation forms rested neatly before every interviewer. Alexander took his seat at the head of the table. He looked around the room calmly. Before we discuss candidates, I have one request. Every executive looked toward him. No one receives special consideration. No one receives special obstacles. We evaluate character. We evaluate ability. And we remain fair. Every person at the table nodded. The meeting quietly began. Without favoritism. Without prejudice. Exactly as he intended. The executive boardroom remained quiet. Sunlight stretched across the polished conference table. 9 evaluation folders rested neatly before the hiring committee. Alexander Sterling sat silently at the far end of the room. He did not open Claire Bennett's file. He waited. The director of human resources looked around. The table. Let us begin. One by one, the interviewers shared their observations. The first interviewer smiled. Claire Bennett possesses excellent administrative experience. But that is not what impressed me most. He lifted his evaluation form. She makes people feel respected. Another interviewer nodded immediately. I noticed the same thing. She answered difficult questions without becoming defensive. She listened before speaking. That quality is becoming rare. Pens rested quietly against notepads. No one hurried the discussion. Every opinion carried equal weight. The director turned another page. Did anyone identify concerns? A brief silence followed. Finally, one interviewer spoke. Only one. Everyone looked toward him. I believe she underestimates herself. Several quiet smiles appeared around the table. I wrote exactly the same observation. So did I. The director held up 3 separate evaluation sheets. Each contained nearly identical handwritten notes. professional, dependable, patient, trustworthy, natural leader through humility. Alexander remained silent, not because he lacked an opinion, because he wanted every conclusion to belong entirely to the committee. The director looked toward him. Mr. Sterling, you requested a completely impartial process. We honored that request. Alexander inclined his head. Thank you. She continued. I believe the committee has reached unanimous agreement. He folded his hands calmly. I would rather hear your conclusion than mine. The director smiled. Our recommendation is to extend Claire Bennett a formal employment offer. No one objected. No one hesitated. The decision felt remarkably simple. Not because the position lacked importance, because Claire's character had quietly answered every question before the committee finished asking them. Alexander finally opened her folder. He read the final page. The closing comment had been written by the Human Resources Director. People naturally trust Claire Bennett. He closed the folder gently. You cannot teach that. The room remained thoughtfully silent. Alexander looked around the table. Skills improve. Experience grows. Software changes. But character. He paused briefly. Character becomes the foundation that supports everything else. Every executive understood exactly what he meant. The meeting concluded without celebration, only quiet certainty. Later that afternoon, Claire returned to her temporary office assignment. She organized invoices, answered telephone calls, helped a coworker locate several missing client files. She never mentioned the interview. She simply continued working. Hope felt safer when carried quietly. Near 4 o'clock, her cell phone vibrated. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. She answered immediately. Hello. This is Claire Bennett. A warm professional voice responded. Good afternoon, Miss Bennett. This is Emily from Sterling Global Human Resources. Claire straightened slowly in her chair. We would like to invite you back tomorrow morning. Her heartbeat quickened. For another interview? Emily smiled gently through the phone. No. For a final meeting. We look forward to seeing you at 10 o'clock. The call ended. Claire lowered the phone without speaking. Nothing had been promised. No offer had been made. Yet something inside her quietly changed. She reached into her purse and touched the folded grocery receipt resting inside her wallet. The familiar words waited beneath her fingertips. Every good mother deserves one easier day. For the first time since that evening inside the grocery store, tomorrow no longer felt uncertain. It felt possible. The following morning arrived with clear skies and cool autumn air. Claire Bennett parked in the same visitor space. This time she did not sit inside the car. She stepped out immediately. Hope had replaced hesitation. Not certainty. Just enough hope to keep moving forward. Inside Sterling Global, the receptionist recognized her. Welcome back, Miss Bennett. Claire smiled warmly. Thank you. It is nice to see you again. The elevator carried her upward in quiet silence. When the doors opened, Emily from Human Resources greeted her with an outstretched hand. Good morning. We are very happy you could join us. Claire followed her down a bright hallway lined with photographs, celebrating employees, community projects, and scholarship recipients. The company suddenly felt less like a corporation, felt like people. Emily stopped before a conference room. Please. They are waiting. Claire entered with steady steps. The same Human Resources Director stood first. So good to see you again. Claire smiled. The pleasure is mine. The director opened a slim folder. Miss Bennett, our committee reached a unanimous decision. Claire listened quietly. We believe your experience is valuable. We believe your professionalism is exceptional. But more importantly, we believe your character reflects the culture we are trying to build. A formal offer letter slid gently across the 3 months passed quietly. Not because life had become perfect, because peace often arrives without announcing itself. Claire Bennett learned every hallway inside Sterling Global. She learned names before titles, birthdays before job descriptions. She remembered who preferred coffee without sugar. She noticed when someone seemed unusually quiet. Small acts, quiet acts, the kind that slowly transform a workplace into a community. Her desk gradually filled with photographs. One showed Lily wearing a bright yellow raincoat. Another captured the little girl laughing beside a playground swing. Neither picture was expensive. Both were priceless. One afternoon, Claire received an unexpected message. "Mr. Sterling would like to see you." She walked toward the executive office with calm confidence. No fear, no uncertainty, only curiosity. Alexander welcomed her with the same gentle smile she had known from the beginning. "Please, have a seat." Claire settled comfortably into the chair. "You wanted to see me?" "I did." Alexander opened a folder. "Today marks your 90-day review." Claire laughed softly. "I had almost forgotten." "I have not." He handed the evaluation across the desk. Every category exceeded expectations. Professionalism, leadership, communication, initiative, integrity. At the bottom appeared one final handwritten sentence. "You make people believe they matter." Claire read it twice. Her eyes became misty. "I do not know what to say." "You already have." Alexander looked toward the family photographs on her desk through the open office door. "You say it every day by the way you treat people." Claire smiled quietly. "My mother always told me, kindness costs less than regret." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "Your mother was wise. So was yours." He looked surprised. Claire laughed gently. "I assume someone had to teach you to become the man who wrote on the back of a grocery receipt." For a brief moment, Alexander looked toward the city beyond the windows. "My mother believed that success should never become louder than compassion." Claire smiled. "I think she would be proud." That afternoon ended without ceremony, without photographers, without applause. Only two people sharing quiet gratitude. Several weeks later, Sterling Global hosted its annual Community Volunteer Day. Employees gathered outside a neighborhood family resource center. Claire arrived holding Lily's small hand. The little girl looked around with wide, curious eyes. Alexander walked over carrying several boxes of donated books. Lily smiled first. "You are the nice man from the grocery store." Alexander smiled back. "I remember you." She reached into her tiny backpack. "I made something." She carefully handed him a folded sheet of paper. Inside was a child's drawing. 3 smiling figures stood beneath a bright blue sky. Above them, written in careful uneven letters, were 5 simple words. "Thank you for helping Mommy." Alexander looked at the drawing for a long moment, then folded it with the same care Claire had once used for his receipt. "I will keep this. I promise." As volunteers laughed nearby and children played beneath the autumn sunshine, Claire watched her daughter skip happily across the grass. Fear no longer shaped every tomorrow. Hope did. Sometimes people believe extraordinary lives begin with extraordinary moments. They do not. Sometimes, a new life begins with the last few coins inside a tired mother's hand. Sometimes, it begins with one stranger choosing kindness instead of silence. And sometimes, the smallest act of compassion becomes the greatest investment anyone will ever make. Because money can purchase comfort, power can open doors, but only kindness has the quiet strength to change a human heart forever.